A seventh time down with Bow Down. The time now is just after 10 minutes past 8. And this morning we are joined by no stranger to the morning drive, Mr. Alec Avierinos from Almighty Warriors. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hi, Sinclair. Great to be with you and the listeners again today.
Yes, we've missed you, and it's good to have you back once again. And I think miss you meaning we've missed you for a week.
Yeah, no, it's nice and it's great to be here. And I think from my side, it'll be an opportunity for us to also, if you want, go off script, bring your own inputs into the conversation. Fasting is a very controversial subject sometimes and misunderstood. And from Almighty Warriors side, we focus, as we've said before, on the spiritual nutrition and exercise for improving your health span. When we talk about fasting, the benefit is that it actually has tremendous spiritual benefits as well as to your health and your health span and your nutrition. So it's a tool to improve your nutrition, but it's also very much a spiritual tool. So we'll start off by covering some of the spiritual aspects, and then we'll move on. Perhaps you'd like to just start with the scripture.
For sure, because I think when our spirits prosper, then our bodies can also prosper. But we are grateful that you are here to also share with us all of that. But Matthew chapter 6 is a very intricate one, and it says in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 16 to 18, and whenever you are fasting, do not look gloomy and sour and dreary like the hypocrites, for they put on a dismal countenance, that their fasting may be apparent and seen by men. Truly I say to you that they have their reward in full already. That's just one verse there. And you want to just elaborate on that, and basically the fasting, we mustn't make it obvious?
No, I think the one of the key takeaways from me is whenever you fast. So it is implied that it should be part of our lives and something that we do on a regular basis. So that is the first thing. And then it shouldn't be something that you want to broadcast to the world at large. It should be something that you're doing between yourself and the Lord. And it is a spiritual tool that you can actively apply and use to help you focus and your relationship on the Lord and growing that relationship.
Look, verse 17 continues, and I think it gives us a bit more of a practical way. And it says, but when you fast, again, it's like that whenever that you just mentioned now. When you fast, perfume your head and wash your face.
Yeah. There mustn't be any visible signs. I think they were referring to the tradition of sackcloth and ashes, and that you would be visibly fasting to those around you, and that's really not necessary. The Lord is interested on what's going on in your heart.
And I guess that's also what verse 18 speaks about. So it says, so that your fasting may not be noticed by men, by your Father who sees in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. So is there really like a reward for fasting as well?
Yeah, I think the big thing there is that it helps you to achieve self-mastery and overcome the flesh. So you've got this continual battle going on between your spirit and your flesh for your mind and your soul. And fasting is one way for you to sort of enforce the will of the spirit on the body, and to overcome the lusts of the flesh. And there we're talking in fasting case about eating, gluttony, overeating, etc. So and it's I always personally think about trying, if you're overcoming a hardship, then you're growing and you're developing in the process. So if you think about prayer on its own, it's pretty simple and straightforward. If you want to make it more serious and put more effort into it, then fasting and prayer go hand in hand. And you definitely are more inclined to be more earnest and serious about what you are praying about.
I love that you said fasting and prayer, because that's what Jesus said. He said when he was casting out the demon that this kind can only come out but by prayer and fasting,
Yeah.
which is essential.
And it's interesting that you mention that, because one of the other verses we've got is Acts 13 verse 2, and there it's telling you while they were worshiping and fasting. So you are supposed to be in a joyful state of worship when you're fasting. It shouldn't be this major drag, and as I've said, it's a tool to help you overcome those bondages that are potentially plaguing you.
There is a verse in the Bible, though, that I don't know if we're understanding this one specifically correctly, Matthew 9, verse 15. And it's kind of like a free pass to say, well, if I'm with Jesus the whole time, I don't need to fast.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
Well, that's an interesting verse, and the people interpret it differently. So Jesus mentioned that why should his disciples have to fast if they should be celebrating because he's with them? And then they take it as when you are born again and the Lord is living in you, that there is no need for fasting any in the future and present. So, the verse does go on, though, however, to say that after he's departed, then they will fast. And if we then look at that verse that I was mentioning in Acts, and there's many others, where the disciples in the New Testament church were fasting, and for breakthrough and for wisdom and for guidance. And that's often what we do in the beginning of the year, and it's great. And if you're fasting for spiritual purposes and reasons, then that's fantastic. But it also has a direct impact on your nutrition and on your well-being.
I think before we jump straight into that well-being one, just to sum up spiritual benefits. I know Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, it starts off in verse Isaiah 58, and it says, fasting that pleases God. Now, in verse 6 specifically, it says, this is the kind of fasting I want. Free those who are wrongly imprisoned. Lighten the burden of those who work for you. Let the oppressed go free and remove the chains that bind people. Link that spiritual benefits and jump straight through to the physical benefits.
Yeah. So if we look at one of the biggest things that fasting does is it helps you to control the production of insulin in your body. And insulin's role is there to basically convert everything that you eat into stored energy. And one of the problems that we have in the modern world is that we eat too much, we eat too often, and we eat the wrong foods. So those are the three ways that you can control your nutrition. So the nice thing about fasting is that it's absolutely free. Anybody can do it, and you don't need to change your diet to do it. So instead of us having an argument about whether or not you should be on a vegan diet or a carnivore diet, or there are a myriad of different people's ideas around diet and nutrition. I believe you stick to the basics, and the basics being, you need to make sure you're getting in enough protein, and you need to eat a lot of vegetables, and then whole foods. Avoid complex carbohydrates and sugars, and if you do that and you are using fasting as a tool, and there's many different types of fasting. So we're talking about intermittent fasting, which is normally 16/8, or alternate day fasting, or prolonged fasting, and they all have their different benefits, but essentially they're all controlling your insulin, and we wanting to avoid diabetes, and one of the ways to do that is to control your eating habits through fasting.
So if we're speaking about nutrition now. Now, if I'm a bit concerned about my weight, does this fasting help, or specific type of fasting? Is there any nutritional benefits that can help me with my weight loss, or even if I need to gain weight?
The simple way to think of fasting is, or to be, when we talk about being overweight, it's a little bit of a misconception. What we're actually saying there is that we haven't got enough muscle and we've got too much fat. So it's your body composition. And when people talk about wanting to lose weight, what they're actually wanting to do is lose fat. Nobody wants to purposefully lose muscle mass. Your muscle mass is absolutely key to a healthy immune system. And it's something that we lose as we age at about 1% a year. So it's very important to add in exercise and resistance training, weight training, and fasting actually assists that. It helps you to utilize your fat reserves while making sure that you don't detrimentally lose your muscle mass. So it is absolutely possible to be fasting and preserve or gain muscle mass while losing weight in the process.
Look, I think you've busted a myth within my own life, because this is the first time I'm hearing about this, that you can actually train while you are fasting. Is that even recommended? Aren't you going to pass out, or
No.
don't you need enough nutrients to be able to get through the workout?
No, it's highly recommended. And I think that when you train, if you're wanting to burn fat, then you need to be training at an elevated heart rate, but not excessively elevated. So you don't want to be pushing it in the red. And you want to be doing that for a prolonged period of time. So all your extended cardios like cycling, swimming, walking, running, as long as you're not really hammering it, will help. And then the fact that you fasted depletes your energy stores that you've built up and that you've got reserved in your liver, which is your primary store. So a nice way to think of it is if you go online and you want to look it up, the professional is Dr. Jason Fung, Fung, Dr. Jason Fung. And there's a lot of videos on YouTube where he'll explain fasting in a lot more detail. But think of it as the difference between the freezer and the refrigerator. Mm-hmm. So your liver and your muscles store your energy in readily accessible form, whereas your freezer is frozen, it's locked, and your fat stores are effectively locked away. So you need to move that fat. Your body needs to convert it back into readily accessible energy in the liver. And it can't and won't do that if your stores in your liver are already full. So by fasting, you are ensuring that you're depleting your energy reserves that you've got in your liver. And you've got about 2 hours worth of hard exercises energy stored in your liver. So if you are continually eating, then you're never depleting those reserves. And the insulin then is forced to store your energy as fat. So by managing your diet and your nutrition with fasting, you've got a better chance at diminishing and utilizing your energy that's stored in your liver, and then when you eat again, you'll replenish that instead of storing it as fat. So it's from a scientific point of view, it's extremely beneficial to fast, and we're a bit pushed on time to go into the different types of fasting in greater detail, but it is seriously beneficial, and you are a whole being. So whether you're fasting for spiritual growth and reasons, or whether you're fasting to try and manage your weight and your nutrition, you're gonna get the benefit on both sides of the equation.
Look, if I may, and I know you did say we're a bit pressed for time, but as a nutritional expert, when it comes to the fasting, is there like a preferred type of fast? I know people do a liquid fast, people do what you said, an intermittent fast. What do you recommend if you are training and you are living a busy lifestyle? What type of fast should you do, and what to eat, when to eat, and how to eat it?
A great way to think about it is just condensing the time period in which you eat. So you wanting to only consume foods within an 8-hour window, and you want to fast for 16. So if you think about the amount of time that you spend sleeping, and you then add on a few hours on either end or both, then you can easily achieve that. And that would be the most sustainable type of fasting on a prolonged period for you to control your and manage your weight. And then once you've got used to doing the 16/8 intermittent fasting, then you can look at alternate day fasting, where you fast for a complete day and then you eat the following day. I like to try and have my main meal at lunch, and avoid having supper, so I eat breakfast and lunch, and that also has beneficial benefits on your sleep, because you're not eating too close to going to bed at night. And that helps you to actually get a better night's sleep. So personally, my downfall is I need to improve my sleep, and get more of it. So I'm trying to grow and learn what I need to do to actually benefit my sleep more than anything else. And so that we mentioned 16/8, we've mentioned alternate day fasting. Another one to do is called one meal a day, and there you're actually doing exactly what it says. You're reducing that eating period to an even shorter, call it a 2-hour window in which you eat, and the rest of the day you don't. You're just having water or coffee or whatever you need, liquids, to sustain you. But in general, most people are ahead of schedule on eating. So fasting is just basically balancing the scale in the right direction. And you can actually fast for an incredibly long period of time, based on the fat reserves that you've got. So simplistically, the more overweight you are, the fatter you are, the longer you can fast for, and you need to fast for in order to actually get back into a healthy state. And one of the measures to see whether you are overweight or not is your height to waist ratio. So if you measure the circumference of your waist, it should be less than half your height. And if that is the case, then you're in a good space. And if not, then you've got room for improvement. And fasting is a great way to do that.
Yes, and before we let you go, a quick question here. We've spoken about the spiritual significance, we've spoken about the nutritional significance and the benefits of fasting. But looking at the life of Jesus, if I've never fasted ever, and I read that Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, what do you recommend I start with if I've never fasted?
Well, I would go slowly into fasting, and if you want to do it for spiritual, if you're doing a 40-day fast, it's almost definitely for spiritual reasons more than nutritional reasons. So just try to keep prolonging the fast. So if you get used to doing an intermittent fast, you get into an alternate day fasting, then from a spiritual point of view, you would want to be fasting for at least 2 or 3 days, if not longer. Then you can do a water-only fast, which is, call it the most extreme. Personally, I haven't done any really long, prolonged fasts. So I sort of found fasting through, we had a spiritual fast through church, and I immediately recognized the benefits of that as a control, as a means of controlling my diet. So I like eating, and it's easier for me to fast than it is to try and control the portion size. I eat pretty healthily, but I still tend to overeat and still enjoy the sweets when they're available. So for me, fasting is a great way to actually control my personal nutrition. But we're all individuals and we're all unique, and you need to experiment and find out what works for you. So there's a huge amount of information. I've collected some of it on our YouTube channel on Almighty Warriors, and I'll go into it on some of the courses on Almighty Warriors. But I can really, really recommend fasting. The spiritual benefits and the nutritional benefits are just unbelievable, and anybody can do it, and there's no cost to it, and it's not complicated, and it adds time back into your day. So let's get at it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you've simplified it very well for us. And we appreciate your time and look forward to having more conversations on fitness and health and some spirituality as well. Thank you so much, Alec.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, and all the best to the listeners.